going great. We are busy as all get out here at Restoration News. We've got all kinds of investigations going on. We are continuing on with supporting fraud watchers and working closely with you and your team to get that database up and running. And we will have a website on that here pretty soon. It looks like in the next. We're counting down now, so
I think we're
it's really going to be
just about there. I think we're just about there. I'm going to push another update to that today. I think it's going to be great.
Good deal. Good deal.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to us getting that up and running because we got a lot more to do on it. So it's
That's
going to be an interesting thing.
Yep. So we are here for our weekly hour to discuss all of the fraud that we see in the news. And man, oh man, we got another one of those weeks where we're not going to even get to it all in an hour because holy cow, do we have a lot to cover this week. We have to start with this one story right off the bat. The story of this refugee who was actually given an award at an awards show for being Refugee of the Year and then was subsequently arrested for fraud. This is a spectacular story.
It's amazing. It's the best thing ever. I mean, this is the standard Somalian refugee gets Outstanding Refugee Award. And of course, he's arrested for fraud. I mean, you can't write this stuff. You can't make it up. Who
even knew they were making award shows for refugees?
Outstanding Refugee Awards. I mean, and of course he's a fraudster. I mean, what like if that's the best, what do you think the worst is? I mean, you got to remember that, right? These people are so brazen about this stuff. They're doing it in public. They're giving them awards. And of course, by the way, we failed to mention this. It's in Minnesota. So it's in Minnesota. They gave the Outstanding Refugee Award to a literal fraudster. I mean, it writes itself. The jokes write themselves on this stuff. I mean, this is their outstanding fraudster. I mean, it's amazing to me. I mean, I don't know how exactly they expect everybody to just... You can't help but laugh, even though it's terrible. I mean, you can't help but laugh at this stuff. I mean, this is what the blue states have become. They're giving awards to the people that are stealing money from American citizens. It's incredible.
If Saturday Night Live had a shred of comedic insight anymore, they would do a skit like this. This is something you would see on South Park, right? Remember the Great Recession episode where they go in to deposit their check at the bank, and he clicks his little keyboard, and okay, your money's been deposited, and it's gone.
Yes, well, I mean, it really is like that. But to me, watching this is, we've already got Ilhan Omar, we've already talked about her extensively. We've talked about this. But the jokes about this stuff, it's so obvious that no one was looking for so long that these people just assume they get away with anything. I mean, remember the woman that was in charge in one of the more recent ones where she went out there and started talking about banana and rice? She's like, Somalians are not like bananas and rice. But after 6 sentences, she's like, but we are kind of like bananas and rice. That's pretty much right. I was like,
what are you even talking about? Right. No, because they've been enabled and coddled for so long by the left and the people that run those blue states. And that's where the attitude comes in, right? Is that they're somehow being more noble by honoring refugees who commit fraud over regular Americans who are paying the taxes on which the fraud is being committed. So,
you would think that they would somehow make that reference, but no. They're giving them awards. I mean, right. I can't believe that we've gotten to a point where people that are unable to really even function properly in society are able to steal from us so easily. It's incredible that we've gotten this far. And it's all because the left has enabled it and they don't have any interest in fixing it. They don't want to fix it. They want to buy votes, and they're doing it very successfully.
That's exactly what they're doing. That's right. I'm going to make another literary reference for you on air here. In the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, there's one character called Wonko the Sane that lives in North California. And he has turned his house, or he turned the world. He realized that the world had gone completely insane when he read the instructions to a toothpick on the package of the toothpick, open package, use toothpick, discard. He realized that at that point, humanity had gone completely insane. So he made the inside of his house the outside. That was the normal world, and the outside of the house became the inside. So that the entire world was basically an insane asylum. That was his silent protest against, and he called himself Wonko the Sane. And I am constantly reminded of that story when I read these absurd stories over and over again in the news where none of this stuff makes sense. How did we even get here? We're giving awards to fraudsters and we're punishing taxpayers and we're sending them to jail for things like thought crimes.
Well, I mean, we've already got plenty of that. I mean, there's anybody who gets arrested. There was just even though this story about this, the woman that was, she went viral for calling some Somalian immigrant, calling him the N-word or something like that after she did something. But, you look at the case on that, and one, she didn't do anything wrong other than say something. And then two, the reality is that the guy that she was talking about was like a multiple-time felon. Like, what are we doing? I mean, I don't know how we're dealing with this stuff. And it's amazing to me because it seems to me that if you live in red states or you live in places like this is stuff just doesn't happen. This is not stuff that I think about. I don't worry about some of this stuff. But the problem is that just means it's more hidden. Okay, it's hidden in the blue cities. That's why you don't notice it. Because even in Ohio, where I live, the fraud was already exposed here. I mean, down in Hamilton County and in Franklin County, all of those areas have fraud from the Somalian immigrants, and it's just hidden by the blue cities. They hide it underneath that. So it doesn't really matter where you're at. It's around you. You just have to pay attention to it. And the fact that we've got them in blue states, they are so brazen and they're so convinced that nothing's going to happen to them that they give them awards. They give them praises and share them everywhere.
It's a culture of fraud, right? And we've got several other stories this week that demonstrated it's a culture of fraud where they don't even know. Not only do they probably know what they're doing is wrong, but they are like, well, I'm never going to get punished for this, so I'm just going to keep going, and then they get indignant when they actually get arrested, even though they probably know they're committing a crime. But here's another example of that is we just, within the last 10 minutes, published a follow-up piece on restoration-news.com on this outfit called Undocuprofessionals. We ran a story originally. Our senior investigative reporter or researcher, Victoria Manning, ran this a couple of days ago. She just sort of stumbled across this doing research on a different story where there's this whole network, this website set up that is an organization, is a professional organization. It's a networking organization for people to find jobs. The only thing is, it's for people without social security numbers, without ID, and without documentation because they come to America illegally. So we dubbed it the LinkedIn for illegals, and that's exactly what it is. They're running webinars and they're running conferences and they're running networking events how to start a business as an illegal, how to get contract work as an illegal, how to get transportation as an illegal, all of these things. They're connecting illegal immigrants with the ability to create income that they're legally barred from having, which is why they have to go through these secret routes to get it in the first place.
Well, the amazing thing about that, and I haven't yet read the story since it just came out just a couple of minutes ago, but the fact that they don't care. They know that they're going to do this anyway. They're trying their best to keep the illegals here because as we've said many times, or at least I've said many times, the reason that they're so convinced in keeping the illegals here is because it's a part of their constituency. That's pretty obvious to me. That's what the Democrats believe. They see illegal immigrants as their constituents. Yeah. But to me, the amazing thing here is that they don't even care that there's a current ICE crackdown. They're trying to do it anyway, which tells me
they care. They actually think the ICE crackdown is bad. They think that enforcing immigration law is immoral somehow.
Well, it's immoral to them only because they're going to lose people that they believe are their voters. That's the only reason they care about it. That's the only reason they really care about it. The NGOs, I'm curious, did you guys get an archive of that website?
Oh yeah. It's up on the Wayback Machine. We have screenshots. We got the whole thing because that's the update is that they're scrubbing the entire thing right now, even though they have a conference coming up this weekend actually. But they've scrubbed the entire website, and we've forwarded it on to the Department of Justice for investigation. We got a like on the post on X from Harmeet Dillon, so hopefully we
Well,
get some action on this. But yeah, no, it's they know that they're in for some serious scrutiny now, so they're scrubbing everything.
Well, the question, since you have it archived, I want to look at it because I'm curious what NGO is supporting it. Because there is one. There's got an NGO that probably paid for it. They probably set it all up because that's how all these systems work for the illegals. The NGOs are the ones that sponsor them and give them all the resources. Otherwise, I mean, American citizens don't have the resources that the NGO illegal immigrants have. It's kind of incredible, really.
That's right. So we've actually got their first slide from their webinar showing all of their sponsors. So right at the top of the list is Cornell Law School, by the way.
Oh, that's nice.
And then there's something called Latinx therapy or Latinx therapy or whatever, however you say that. Unesis Hernandez, LA City Council member, Disability Rights California, OG Comics, Institutional Solutions, Path to Papers, which is obviously an NGO to get people amnesty, and then something called Bella. So, I mean, there's a lot. But then here's the meat of the article. We uncovered dozens of colleges and universities across the nation promoting the Undocumented Professional Illegal Alien Job Board. Here's a sample: University of Rochester, Stanford University, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Northwestern University, Queens College, on and on and on and on and on. So there are dozens and dozens of taxpayer-funded colleges supporting this and promoting it.
Well, I mean, you got to remember the taxpayer-funded colleges and whatnot. This is a story I ran earlier this year. They've got illegals. They have illegals attending college. So, sure. It's in their interest to make sure that their students get jobs, I guess. I mean,
well, and that was the thing, right? Is it Harmeet Dillon came out and threatened the loss, or no? It was Linda McMahon, Secretary of Education, demanded to know whether or how much in-state tuition was being given to illegals and not to documented students, right? So they're keying in on the fact that they're giving them an unfair advantage and an illegal advantage that's not allowed by law. So we're in for a lot more prosecutions in the next coming months.
Well, the colleges have a real issue because the colleges, because of their own stupidity in allowing in so many foreign people and trying to intentionally grow their populations of their colleges, even that they're going to shrink over the next few years, there's nothing they can do about it. Less people are going to be going to college. But as a result of that, 2%, this is the story I found out, that 2% of the higher education population in the United States, that was directly illegal immigrants. The Biden administration ran a study and proved it. So they were all proud of it. Oh yeah, we've got 400,000 illegal immigrants attending colleges. My question was always my question is the same as Harmeet's. How are they paying for it? How are so-called undocumented illegal immigrants, these people that are supposedly destitute, came here illegally, can't do anything, right? How are they affording college in the United States if they're here illegally? And the question is the exact same one that Harmeet's paying is in-state. Are they paying for it? Is the states paying for it? Because that's what's happening. Now, in some states, in some states, they actually have programs set up that they've legally passed saying they can give it to illegal immigrants, which I don't know.
In many states, actually. Oregon was one of them when I was there. All the blue states have done that. So you've got the same DSA types, the Bernie Sanders supporters that have been around for the last decade. They started supporting Bernie Sanders and then Joe Biden because they were going to have their student loans forgiven. But all these people are sucked into this student loan trap where they have hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, but they also support giving free tuition to illegal aliens. Make that make sense.
Well, I mean, you got to saddle the illegal immigrants with a few $100,000 in debt. Then they're stuck.
No, they don't have to pay it though.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess that's true. They're not here illegally. They can just disappear. I mean,
how can they sign loan documents?
Well, that was always my question. I assumed that FAFSA was being gamed somehow, that was something to do with the duplicate Social Security numbers. That was the conclusion I came to, that they were using them. But, I mean, just the fact that we've got a scenario where they're intentionally building out. I mean, they've got whole systems like this. In fact, just here in Springfield, Ohio, there was a group that was doing this. They were helping Haitians get jobs. They were showing up in parking lots with Haitians and then giving them employment records. There was a friend of mine that got assaulted by some lady from an NGO. She showed up and started throwing things at him. Now he just laughed at her. So
Right.
it's not like it really worked for them. But I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's going on. I mean, they obviously have a well-funded network that is designed to do this, to keep these people here and to tell them that they're welcome and happy and all this stuff so they can take more money. Because the NGOs, and the reason the NGOs like it is because they get more money to deal with the problems of more people having these issues. The same thing with the homeless thing. I mean, that's the homeless NGO in California, right? The reason the homeless issue hasn't been solved is, well, an NGO, the problem with an NGO is that once it's a nonprofit, once it's achieved its mission, then it's useless and it goes out of business. Well, if you
That's
don't want
right.
it to go out of business, what do? Well, the
You
SPLC
increase the
found the
budget, you
solution.
increase the supply.
Well, SPLC figured out the solution. They just decided to create the problems that they had to solve, right? I mean, do you think it's the only one that does that? I highly doubt it. I highly
No,
doubt it. I mean, I'm sure
it's a
this is the
successful
issue.
business
So if you
model,
got to
man.
think about it from the NGOs around immigration is the largest industry in the United States. I don't think people realize that, but it is. I mean, immigration controls all of DC, almost every aspect. Because and the reason for this, by the way, is not to be cold, but the reality is that the reason that immigration and people matters because everything in DC at the end revolves around people, as in the amount of people, not like people as in like the people that run this country that care about no, that has nothing to do with it. The physical amount, the physical number of people that exist here. Everything in DC revolves around that. So if there's
That's
more,
right, because
there's
the
more.
amount of representation your area gets is based on population, right? So
Yeah,
they in fact want to reduce the number of people that are in control, but they want to increase the number of people that they control, right?
That's
So
right. That's right. Well, I mean,
yeah.
it's the same thing with all budgets, though, right? I mean, if you've got 10 times the amount of people that you did last year, your budget's got to be way larger. Of course it does. And then,
Yeah.
we already know what happens with it then. We're already talking about the amount of fraud, which I think we can continue to go into that now because as we have a landmarked today, which I think will lead perfectly into our next one, is that the fact that we've got $40 trillion in debt now. So I think that's our next. That's a perfect way to continue.
I'm
this.
so old I can remember when the Tea Party was mad at Barack Obama because our public debt surpassed something like $8 trillion. And that was, 15 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I saw something earlier today that I think it was Zero Hedge put out this chart. They said it took 200 years for the federal debt to reach $1 trillion, and it took 95 days to add another trillion.
Yep.
Woo.
Yeah. It's crazy, and Congress is not doing its job, and that's what's hilarious about the DSA and their platform, where they want to get rid of the Senate and subordinate the president to Congress. Congress is already not doing its job, and so now they want to control the one branch of government where they're actually spending the money insanely and putting no brakes on the growth of the federal government. At least, there's some checks and balances still in place in the federal government, but they sure don't exist in the House of Representatives the way it's currently operating.
Well, one of the biggest issues I think we have, and this is something that Trump has addressed and I've thought about extensively, is that the power of the executive is not necessarily only just to sign bills and do all that stuff. It's actually to rein in the spending of the other branches, because Congress will spend money endlessly. Right. I think it's actually McKinley, or William McKinley, the one that Trump talks about constantly, that I think he vetoed like 300 or 400 bills or something like that. He said, well, what's the purpose of it? We need it. I mean, there needs to be more vetoes, and there needs to be more authority from the president to stop spending when we don't need it. I think
he has that authority constitutionally, right? He is the executive to execute the laws, so he has that discretion, at least definitionally, under how the Constitution lays out his duties. So the president can choose what they're going to spend the money on, or whether they're going to spend.
My point is. Well, and that's what my point's been. My point is that the president used to be able to have that authority, and they've restrained it constantly over the years and years and years and years of doing that, until the president now has significantly less authority than he used to. People don't believe that, because they think every time the president gets expanded authority, oh my goodness. And no, the reason that the expanded authority has slowly gone away is because Congress took pretty much everything away from the president over the past 100 years. Now, if we get back to the point where, I mean, for example, the president can't even fire people within the government branch up until just recently. That's new.
Well,
now
he can, but he'll get sued for it. Well, that's the other thing, is that the judicial branch, the third branch of government, is completely out of control.
Well, yeah, that's we've got problems everywhere. But if the spending itself, I mean, we're $40 trillion of debt now. I mean, what was this next story we had here? Because this is, I think, the perfect example of this, right?
Oh, the 50% of all employment growth in California and New York.
Well, specific. Well, that we can get to that in a minute. I was talking about for the debt issue. I mean,
yeah.
The $2.7 trillion dollars. I mean, this is.
Yeah. So this is a tweet that came out yesterday or today. $2.7 trillion in improper payments has been reported by executive agencies since 2003 per the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, which, all it does is point stuff out. It's not exactly accountability, but it's a start. But per the GAO, payments made in error, in the wrong amount, or without proper documentation. 2.7 trillion since 2003. That's 23 years, 2.7 trillion. So that's a little over $100 billion a year, right? Which, I mean, that's just improper payments. That's not even including the fraud that we've started uncovering and all the stuff that the fraud task force.
That just means the paperwork was filed improperly. That's all right. That means. That just means the paperwork was filed improperly, and we still paid for it. I mean, that's yep. You know what the interesting part about that, they kind of say since 2003. I'd like to know, what I'd really like to know on that is what the distribution per year is there, though, right?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. They probably have those statistics, right? Where those payments supposedly went.
I bet you I can get that. I bet you I can get that. I would love to see what that is, because if the distribution is, after 2012, magically everything triples, then that would be very interesting. I'd like to see that. Right. I bet you I can get those numbers. I'm going to look into that. That's probably worth talking about.
That's an interesting point too, is that they go back specifically to 2003, and I think that's to implicate the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War in that. If we look at more granularly at the different spikes, I'm going to guess that the Iraq and Afghanistan are dwarfed by domestic spending.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. Okay, I mean, we know it is just based on what healthcare is. I mean, just the right. Healthcare budget is so high now and so absurd. I mean, this is a perfect example, and this is the reason I wanted to go into this, because the previous one, the story that we were about to talk about, how in California we've now learned that 50% of employment growth in California and New York is from home care. I mean, this is what we've been talking about for months. This is what we've been talking about. That means that many people, 50% of two of our largest states, their people are half of those people are just doing home care. That's unbelievable.
Well, the employment growth. So any job additions that they've made in the last year. But that's really something, right? I mean, because they're not adding as many jobs as you'd think, because California and New York are contracting. They're losing citizens to red states, and their industries are actually shrinking, except for the NGOs and the government-backed industries that we've talked about, right? So, but that's a damning figure, no matter how big the actual number is. That 50% of new jobs that are created are due to healthcare fraud.
I mean, that's just an unbelievable amount. I mean, to me, you got to think about what that means. That means that the home healthcare industry, which we've now reported on extensively, we talked about the home healthcare stuff, and this is what we've talked about in every state. This is the stories we ran in Michigan. This is the stuff we were talking about in Minnesota. This is stuff we've been talking about for a minute now. If this number is true, 50% of employment growth, that means that the employment rate in California, if you take out all the fraud, has got to be terrible. I mean, that means that all of the employment growth has had essentially no growth for the past few years, and it's probably been contracting. I mean, that has to be what that means.
And they're doing it on purpose to game the numbers to make it look like they're healthier economically than they really are. There's no doubt in my mind that that's what they're doing. It's the same thing with.
It's the same thing they did with all the numbers. And the same thing they did with the crime statistics. They cook the books on the crime. I love when I hear the crime statistics where people try and tell me that places in Mississippi, the middle of Mississippi, these towns in Mississippi are significantly more dangerous than downtown Los Angeles. What?
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry. There's not many places in Mississippi that I know of that have full armored SWAT team like tanks that have to roll around for some of the events.
That are doing routine patrols.
Yeah. When do they have that in Jacksonville? I'm sorry, I don't remember that.
Right.
They claim that the reason that the statistics are so different is because of what we found in D.C. They were cooking the books.
It's not just that they're cooking the books, right? It's also that these tiny little dots on the map in Mississippi, it's a small sample size, right? So they get a momentary blip because some horrendous crime happens one day, and so they tout that as the huge spike in crime that's worse than Chicago. Give me a break.
Well, the deal is that, in Chicago and these places, the simple part is that they don't report this stuff. They don't.
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
I have a cousin, a relative of mine, who told me once that something like 50% of the homicides in Chicago go unreported. Now that sounds crazy to hear, but is it really? I mean, is it actually?
No, that's probably accurate. And then on top of that, so like they're not reporting it to the Chicago PD for investigation, right? It's a lot of gang violence and a lot of people who know each other from the neighborhood that are not going to narc out to the cops. So that's a known quantity. But on top of that, on top of the 50% of murders that aren't reported to the local police, there are 30% of police agencies across the nation that are not submitting statistics to the FBI for their crime database.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest problems, right? So how can you? I love it when people like I think it was Newsom who did this when they were talking about how dangerous some of these blue cities are, and then Newsom comes out and is like, well, go look at all these red states. Oh, they have the horrible crime rates in all those red states. Well, the funny thing about that is when he said that, at that exact moment, the red states were actually accepting help from the Trump administration, like Memphis, Tennessee. Everyone forgets that ICE and Border Patrol and a bunch of other people went into Memphis, Tennessee, but you didn't hear about it. Why didn't you hear about it? Why didn't you hear? There wasn't riots in every street corner, and there wasn't people pouring out into the streets attacking ICE officers in Memphis, Tennessee, because they would have been arrested. They would have been arrested. That wouldn't have happened in Memphis, Tennessee. Because
even though it's a blue city, it's still a red state, and the governor would have put a lid on that stuff immediately.
Exactly, which is why you never even heard about it. No one has any idea. All you know is that they went in there, and apparently it was a great job, and they've seen a significant drop in crime rates. At one point I had the idea of going down to some of these states that actually had ICE show up where they didn't have riots in the streets, and I was going to ask local people what exactly they thought about the results of it, because I'm sure that they're pretty happy. The federal government came in and look at crime down.
Yeah, you look at Minneapolis with Alex Preddy and Amber Good. Those people were instigating riots and assaulting police officers. They didn't. It's tragic that they got shot, and it's a horrible situation all around. But if you're not agitating and you're not attacking police officers, you're not going to get shot.
That's what my point is there. I mean, really, if I'm sorry, there's never been a scenario where I personally am worried about police. If the police come near me, I've got absolutely no problem with police being around.
That's just your white privilege, Walter.
Oh, that's right, white privilege. I mean, typically speaking, if you're not a criminal, you don't have much to worry about when it comes to the police. I mean, it's just that these people. The brazen ability.
If you are a criminal, if you act like a human being, you're going to get treated like a human being. If you've committed a crime, you'll get arrested, go to jail, and you won't get dead because you haven't been a subhuman piece of filth that resists and turns it into a federal case.
Well, I mean, just the idea that we have a whole generation of people that believe it's okay, and this is a direct result of Black Lives Matter and the campaign against police, that believe that you can just attack police officers and nothing will happen to you. Typically speaking, I don't think it's a good idea to assault anybody who has a badge. But worse than that, how about just the general basic safety ideas? Maybe, just maybe, don't attack somebody who has a firearm if you have no intention of being shot. If you don't want to be shot, don't go after somebody who has a gun. It's not smart. It's not wise. If you want to be shot, then, try fighting people with guns. Then maybe that's one way that you can go about it. But I don't recommend it. But the problem is that we've also created this almost martyr culture where they
exactly what it is.
It's a martyr culture. It's something that I talked about a long time ago, Jeff. It's that the blending of what you wonder why the Islamic group has such a hold within the left and why they're using it. It's because it's actually beneficial for them. It takes the martyrdom culture that comes from Muslims, that actually being entwined with the left and this kind of alliance that they've built actually builds this idea. It answers the transcendental question for them, because the problem with Marxism is that at the end of the day it's still materialist. It doesn't actually have any transcendental nature. I mean, there's some people that are true believers in it, but at the end of the day, there's nothing really to it.
Right, but Marxism also very much adheres to martyr culture, as you put it, because it's all about the oppressed versus the oppressors, right? So if a few people have to die in the proletarian uprising, then that's they'll be celebrated. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for tragic stories that they can tell to prove that it's just the jackboot of the state oppressing the poor put upon worker class.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really incredible to watch. I mean, we've seen this so badly. I mean, we've got fraud in every single state. We've got $40 trillion in debt. We now know for a fact. Well, I'm more hung up on the idea that they just say it's improper payments of $2.7 trillion. I want to. The funny part about that is we know that it's more than that, and because we don't even. That's just ones that they didn't file the paperwork, which means it just checked a couple boxes. Oh look, we did these boxes correctly. I would love to know how much of that is actually real money that has actually been spent. I mean, that's the incredible part about it there.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy that we're still dealing with this. It's just. Amazing.
Well, I think the problem is that it's been going on for so long. It's not that we're still dealing with it. It's that no one has checked. I mean, no one has even looked for years now. I mean, that's the biggest issue, I think, is that it really is so bad that no one has even looked at it for who knows how long at this point. I mean, at this point, I don't think anybody's looked in several years, let alone recently. And the fact that we're just now running into this, of course, it comes right as we're sitting in a scenario where we've got unbelievable amounts of payments going out. And as we try to stop it, the amazing thing is people fighting against it, I guess. Watching the refusal to cut it out. I mean, the Doge stuff was a perfect example of this. Doge was incredibly popular across the country. I think there was a Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen. I was talking to him at one point. He was telling me that the Doge, when Doge was working, when they were cutting and slashing the government, it had a 60% approval rating. 60%. Right. And they killed it. They absolutely did. The powers in D.C. just murdered it because they couldn't deal with it. They couldn't let something like that happen. I mean, that's too much. It was actually looking at the fraud and going after it. But the thing is, I don't think they could stop it anymore. Now everybody's paying attention to it. At least anybody who's serious is paying attention to it. I mean, at this point, I don't think there's going to be any question that at some point we're going to have to rein in the fraudulent spending, and that's going to be a huge upset for a lot of these people.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think that makes fraudwatchers.news all the more important when we finally launch it. It's going to be out next week or so, and my goodness, the ability to track this stuff, we lost that with Doge, right? I mean, Doge is sort of stuck now, but at the time, as you point out, it was very popular. They got rid of most of the spending in USAID, or at least transferred it off to different departments, and all of the wasteful stuff that didn't make any sense to spend money on, we stopped. And there's a popular observation on the online right that, boy, riot season has been really quiet this year, and USAID no longer exists. Is that a coincidence? That's something we really ought to look into, because there's not a lot of money going to these protest groups. SPLC is under indictment. The CFO got indicted, as we noted last week. And so the more we clean this stuff up, and the more we actually enforce the laws, the smoother society goes, because we can all of a sudden start to become a high trust society again when the bad guys actually get in trouble for being bad guys.
Well, that would be the hope, right? I mean, at this point now, the amount of money that's been stolen is not something, to me, I've been saying for a while, we just need to stop the bleeding. Like, we need to cut the money off at the source, which I think you're right. I think you're right on the money that I think now. I mean, riot season, as you just referred to it as, which is a pretty good, and that's ample. description of it. Riot season is usually the summer for the left. When Trump was in office, they rioted every summer. But the
Right.
deal is that you notice that the money seems to be, there must be less money because it only happens sporadically now. It's only every few months they get something, and then there's something that happens. Like, there was Minnesota, then there's this Delaney Hall stuff that happened recently, but this months apart. I mean, it's several months apart at this point. So, it used to be they could do these every day, all day, every night, all night. I mean, it was happening everywhere. It was happening everywhere, all over the place. And this is something I talked about when I went out to Oregon, watching the meat and cheese trays be passed around. Obviously, someone still had some money for these things. I mean, it's not a joke for anybody who's new to the show. When I was at a protest in Oregon, there was quite literally meat and cheese trays being handed out by models walking around, carrying them around in sundresses. So I was like, what in the hell am I watching? I mean, this is not normal.
Well, normal. Yeah, I covered protest situations in Portland for many years. I was the chair of the Republican Party there in Multnomah County for several years after the Tea Party, and so I was at ground zero, man. I blessedly escaped in 2021 and moved to Florida from Portland. But my goodness, even 2016 after Trump got elected, the swarms just descended on downtown Portland and rioted and blocked traffic and blocked the freeways, all that stuff, right? And smashed up cars at car dealerships, just complete mayhem. And protest culture has been going on for a long time unchecked. And I wrote about this in my book, actually, that during the let's see, which one was it? It's hard to keep track of all the different protests. It was actually during the protests after Inauguration Day, the Women's March protests and all those protests that were going on. Those got pretty big in Portland and in Seattle, but they were shuttling. They were actually ordering Uber rides back and forth between Seattle and Portland. I knew Uber drivers who gave protesters rides from Seattle to Portland, and they were told, "Okay, we've got enough people in Seattle. We're going to redeploy you down to Portland." That's a 3-hour drive. That's a very expensive Uber ride, but they had the money to deploy these people. And the BLM riots, I remember there were so many people reporting vehicles with out-of-state plates that were all over downtown Portland, and then even out into the countryside in the neighboring county, Clackamas County, out in the rural areas. They were out there with AR-15s and propane bottles trying to set forest fires. So, I mean, it was just absolute mayhem, and it was all obviously coordinated from outside Portland with a lot of money. And that's
the thing. Everyone knows that there's money behind this, which is why the going after the NGOs, I think, is the biggest key to this stuff. I mean, going after every one of the NGOs is the biggest key to this, because, and this is something I talked about in an article I wrote a while back, is that, the protest culture is kind of a significant thing to talk about, because it's not like everyone wonders, like, are they giving them cash directly there on the streets? Like, it's not always like that. There is cases of that happening, but it's not always.
The bail fund is very much like that.
Yeah, well, the bail fund is. We know the bail fund is. But there's the other aspect of it, is that people think that there's the NGO population in the United States. It's not a small number. Okay, like the amount of people that work for NGOs in the United States, I did the numbers on this a while back, that the actual numbers of people that work for activist organizations roughly accounts for about 1 million people. So if you have 1 million people that work for specific activist organizations, if even half of those people are far left activists, let's say it's a third of that. Okay, it doesn't matter. 25%
need that much, really.
250,000 people working for activist organizations. Those are paid professional protesters. They work for professional protesting organizations. That's what they do. Yeah,
I mean, I've mentioned this before, but they had a protest consultant at the campus protests against or pro-Hamas protests a couple of summers ago. The Columbia and University of Michigan. They actually had protest consultants brought in to coach all of these quote unquote grassroots activists on how to be a pain in the neck.
Well, I mean, it's not just that. That's just to me sounds like like domestic terrorism training is what that sounds like. But
That's
that's kind of
exactly what it
incredible.
was.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of incredible. But I mean,
I
you got to
mean,
think about it. All these different big protests. There's always the people that stand around the legal review people, the legal whatever legal observers or whatever it is. Those people are
oh
paid
sure,
too. They're all
the
paid.
National
All these
Lawyers Guild.
people.
Uh,
Yeah.
the National Lawyers Guild has been associated with Communist Party of the United States for almost 100 years, and they are out there helping all of these protest groups do with their legal defenses for the tomfoolery that they engage in.
Well, I mean, it's to me, all of the money that's involved in this, it's obviously so well funded. I mean, I'll never forget watching the meat and cheese trays. That was just an eye opening moment for me. The meat and cheese trays told me everything. It's like, this isn't organic at all. All these people, none of these people would be here if you didn't give them food, give them entertainment. I mean, it's essentially what it is. It's an evening of entertainment. Okay. It's like you've
Right.
got an evening
That's
of
why the
entertainment.
frog costumes became so popular, right?
That's right. That's right. I mean, they do all this stuff intentionally. It's an evening of entertainment. It's an evening of community rising together. I mean, that's all bullshit. And none of these people have any idea what they're there for. They don't care. None of these
That's
people
right.
care. And none of these people
No,
care at all.
they're all 90% of them are LARPing, but that's where the paid protest consultants are so important. Is that somebody's curious, like, oh, this looks like fun, or yeah, I'm going to be a '60s radical today. My grandfather protested at Woodstock or whatever,
Well,
so
I know that this stuff is the reason they do the big protests and stuff like that. Is I noticed this again when I was in one of the blue cities. I can't remember which one it was now. Probably in Portland or Seattle. I can't remember which one. But I was walking around one of their big downtown rallies. Well, they had the Democrat and DSA were walking through the crowd, signing up voters. They were there registering voters. That's what they were doing the whole time they were there. They were just wandering around. People wondering, hey, you want to register to vote? Captive audience. Yeah. You've got us surrounded by other people that supposedly believe this nonsense. I mean, it's a brilliant place for them to register voters because then they've got them all sat there and to listen.
Because they don't have enough Democrat voters in Seattle. That's the problem.
Well, the deal is that how do you solidify control in a city like that? Well, are you going to? How are you going to register Republican voters in Seattle? I mean, really, how are you going to do it? Where are you going to do it?
Let me tell you, be in the chair of the Republican Party in Portland was no picnic. Let me tell you.
No, I'm sure. I don't doubt that at all. I mean, that's why Charlie Kirk was so important, really, because he was willing to go to these left-wing campuses and register young voters and say, hey, no, this exists. There are conservatives that exist in the world. I mean, that's
also promote revivals, too.
That's right. That's right. I mean, the faith and doing actual and conservative principles being projected onto college campus, that didn't exist when I was in college. It didn't. Right. If you were conservative, you were outcast. Oh my God, you're one of those evil people that doesn't believe in. You might as well have been considered somebody who believed the Earth was flat. I mean, that was roughly the same equivalent amount of people that believed in what was on. I mean, it was. It really was that bad.
Yeah, when I was in college, the college Republicans were they were mocked. There were like 6 of them. It wasn't very many, and everybody made fun of them.
Well, it looks to me now that that's starting to change. At least I know that the younger generation, this is the most conservative generation we've had in many, many years, which I think is fantastic. But I think at the same time, that's part of the reason because the left has they went so nuts that it's very difficult for people to look at these people. And I wrote about this. I called it the. I can't remember. It might have been a speech or something that I did at some point. It was talking about men don't want to be hall monitors. Men don't listen to hall monitors. That was what it was. And it's the fact that young men, how on earth are young men going to take seriously the people that say, well, you can't call me by that pronoun. You have to call me by this one. A 16-year-old boy will laugh at you every single time you tell him to do that. There's nothing, and there's nothing in the world that you can do to convince a 16-year-old male with testosterone in his body that you being a little upset about some name that's a normal name that you call them upsets you. They're going to do it every day. They don't care. But if you yell and scream at them, that's not going to get you any wins. Okay, that's where people always wonder where the Nick Fuentes types came from, where that entire movement came from. It came from the people trying to yell at those men, and their response was, "Screw you! I don't care. I'm just going to check out. Now I like Hitler." I mean, that's what they did. That's what they did.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
They came so far from the opposite direction. They said, "What's the worst thing I can say online or anywhere to make the most amount of people upset?" Because this is the reaction that you get when you piss off young men and you give them no options. Their response is, all right, screw you. I hate everybody. I hate everyone, all of them, every single one of you. And I'm not surprised by it at all. The people get shocked by it. It's
certainly
really
not condoning it, right? But
no, but
it's not at all a shocking development,
no, it's
given
not
the
condoning any of it. But the
absurd
deal is,
oppression that they face.
well, it's the reaction of a group of people that felt like they had no other options because the left didn't give them any other options. They felt
Right.
like that. And now there is, of course, other options, but when you've got a society that is so polluted by people that care more about illegal immigrants to give them more money, they're giving refugees awards, even though they're fraudsters. Well, how are you surprised where in the space people, someone like even like Nick Fuentes, where does he live? He lives in Chicago. He lives in the middle of a blue city. There's no Republican representation there. There isn't,
Right.
and there hasn't been for a long time. And the entire state of Illinois doesn't have Republican representation, let alone where he lives. What other options do people have in those states? And people are surprised that you've gotten this even more radical versions of people. Well, of course you did. You give them nothing. You give them zero compromise, zero operation. Well, then you're going to get something bad. That's what people just scream about how terrible Trump is. Trump isn't even really that conservative. Trump is a New York Democrat from the 90s and the end of the day. He's not a fiscal conservative. He's not me. He's not what I would do if I was
Certainly spending like not spending like a conservative.
That's right. I mean, the deal is that I love Trump. Trump is one of the best presidents we've ever had. But the reality is that he's not a fiscal conservative by any means. In fact, he's significantly more moderate than I ever would be. I consider myself to the right of Genghis Khan. I mean, that's my comment to people. But you've got Trump in there, and the people are screaming, "Oh my God, he's the worst thing ever." He's not. He's really not. But if you continue to push people, at some point, someone far more radical than Trump will rise, and that'll happen. I mean, there's nothing they can do to stop that if they continue down this route. But you got to go to the opposite direction. You got to go back to the middle at some point. The left is just refusing to. I mean, now the DSA has got their hands in everything, and now it's almost impossible for this stuff to stop going down. I mean, you've got to get rid of the DSA and be able to bring the spending and the fraud and all of this back under control. Otherwise, you're just going to get more radicals on both sides, and that's a huge problem for the country.
Well, with the DSA, you got to wonder at what point does America decide that we're not going to allow them to continue to run amok anymore, and we're going to start enforcing the laws. For instance, the law passed in the 50s outlawing the Communist Party of the United States of America. That's the kind of stuff. The House Committee on Un-American Activities, that kind of stuff it's coming, because at some point America is going to say, we're not putting up with this silliness anymore. This is completely against our constitutional order, and we need to say no. We need to stand up for our national values.
Well, at some point, I think you're right in one respect that at some point people are this is really going to have to come from the Democrat side, because the Democrats are living in this fantasy world where we don't have adversaries in the world. They don't care.
Well, they've lived like that for decades. I don't think they're ever going to change that.
Well, they're going to have to.
In fact, they favor our adversaries in many cases.
Well, go ahead.
There was just a protest in Chicago yesterday of people calling Obama a war criminal for taking out Muammar Gaddafi. I'm not making that up. They were actually marching around with Gaddafi's little green book in their hands and, holding pictures of Muammar Gaddafi.
Oh my goodness. I mean, these people are insane. I mean, this is what we've got. We were talking about this before we got on the show, the insanity that has plagued the United States. Now, but the other problem is, though, at some point they're going to have to realize it, though, because even though the Democrats may be, their only pursuit is power. They don't care. They only want to get back in power. So if that means that everybody else in the world gets stronger and the United States doesn't, they don't care. They don't care about that. They just want to be back in power.
No, it's to their advantage.
That's right. As long as America's failing while the Republicans are in charge, then that we can do such a better job, even though they have proven every single time that they can't. That they do a significantly worse job. But it doesn't matter to them as long as they still get back into power and they can give all their buddies money. I think that's all they really care about at the end of the day. These people are extremely corrupt. And we've got a scenario where you're talking about whether or not we actually deal with anti-American activity in the United States. Well, that'd be a hell of a commission right now, because it is everywhere. I mean, it's the only country in the world where people hate this country. There's a significant portion of the population of people that hate this country, even though they live here and it's the best country in the world, but they still hate it. Now, oh my God, it's awful here. I'm not sure.
Where are you going to go that's any better?
Right. I mean, that's the other part of this. This is people that they don't know anything about the rest of the world. They assume that every other country is significantly better, which is why it was great watching all of the Europeans come here for the World Cup. You know, they're driving around, oh wow, this is amazing, and they're talking about how air conditioning in every hotel room, like,
and Buc-ee's and Waffle House and Miller Lite, and
it's just amazing to me. Listening to these people that are everyone thinks about Europe as these beautiful first world countries. They're not. I mean, they're really not.
Not anymore. They're
I mean, I don't even know if they ever were. I mean, I've been to all over Europe. No one has ice. No one has air conditioning. Why not? Why don't you have these things? I mean, this is just something that doesn't exist there because their countries don't have the ability to afford it. Especially, I mean, think about Germany. There'd be no way they could afford air conditioning for the entire country right now. Their energy grid couldn't handle it.
And they're still the greatest economy in the European Union, right? They still have the highest GDP, and they could not afford that because they've got too much regulation and too much socialism.
Yeah, and not enough energy, really. That's their biggest problem. Well, as I've claimed before, that it's because Greta Thunberg started the Ukraine war. That's the reason they don't have any energy. I mean, this is the real problem. If she hadn't started the Ukrainian war, then all of this would have been okay. But they all listened to her and they all shut off all their nuclear plants and decided to start the war. I mean, this is amazing stuff, though. But that's
I don't know. We need to dedicate an entire show to that theory of yours.
I think I have actually in the past. I think I did that. I think I did that once. It's not really that complicated of a leap, really. She came out and said, you stole my future and did all this stuff. And then Europe proceeded shortly after that to shut down half of its energy capacity. And then they all started buying oil from Russia. It's not that complicated a theory.
That's fair. It's not that complicated. And then Russia's like, hey, look, we have all this money. Let's build bombs.
Yeah, well, let's build bombs and invade because you guys don't have a military.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Just like Iran, right? I mean,
that's right.
They sent however many billions of dollars in of cash on pallets the Obama administration sent to them, and all of a sudden the Houthis are bombing every ship in the Red Sea.
What happens when you give people bombs that don't need them and shouldn't have them, and give them a whole bunch of money? They'll build fields and nursing homes, right? Sure.
Yeah, and hippie communes where people can become artists and musicians.
Well, that's what you remember the Sesame Street we paid for in Iraq, right? So we had an Iraqi Sesame Street. So maybe that's the kind of things that they were hoping they'd spend money on. I mean,
that's right.
Oh my goodness.
Well, anyway, we got one more story we got to cover. We're getting close to the end here, but we got one more story that ran across the transom here that is very interesting. It's actually some good news from Kash Patel and the FBI. He put out a tweet yesterday that the FBI, just in the last 5 weeks, 4 of the world's most wanted fraudsters were captured, on 3 different continents. $2 billion in alleged Medicare and healthcare fraud targeted, $15+ billion seized from scam center operations last year that we talked about last week. Thousands of trafficked laborers have been freed. That's another thing we haven't talked at all about, but the amount of human trafficking and slavery of all kinds, forced labor and sex slavery and human trafficking that goes on because of the illegal immigration nightmare that we've foisted upon ourselves. This is going on in America right now, and we're just scratching the surface on arresting these people and investigating.
Remember that story from earlier in the year where they found children working in a weed farm in California, and they were all illegal immigrants. So they were just using slave child labor for weed farms in California. And Newsom was like, oh, that didn't happen here. Like, what? Oh, yeah. Sorry, we freed your slaves, dude. Jesus. I mean, what is going on here? I mean, this kind of stuff that happens in the United States right now. It's unbelievable to me.
Listen, man, the Democrats have always been the party of slavery, haven't they?
Yes, that's true. They always have been, and now they're upset that we're taking they don't even notice it when they say it too. This is something that has always driven me nuts. When you hear them talk about this stuff, it's specifically when they talk about illegal immigrants, like, well, who's gonna pick our strawberries? Who's gonna clean my house? Like,
yeah, who's gonna clean my toilets?
No, there's even a woman up in somewhere in, I think it was Vermont. She was at a public meeting and she said, if we get rid of all the illegal immigrants, soon we won't be able to wipe our own asses. So it's like, oh, that's what you think about these people. I mean, that's really what they think. They don't even notice it, though. That's the amazing thing. They don't even pick up on the fact that what they're doing is this just absolute disdain for these people. They're like, wow,
right? They're
what are they gonna do?
dehumanizing. They're just
They don't care
commodities
about it at
there
all.
to provide a service. They're not
They
actual human
provide
beings.
cheap house care. I mean, I need my house.
That's
I
right.
need I need my roof done for cheap. I don't want to pay 20 grand for a roof. I don't want to pay that. I want to like what? I don't want to do that. Like, why would I do that? It
Well,
really is.
unfortunately, that industry is. I mean, you don't have a choice at this point.
Well, it really is kind of incredible. But this
Yeah.
is what they think. But I didn't even read that part of it. Thousands of trafficked laborers freed. That's kind of incredible.
Yeah. No, and that's something that we need to look into a little bit more, because the amount of human trafficking. I mean, we've talked about it for years. You know, the rape trees at the border. You know, and the where the girls' undergarments are hanging from trees as trophies from these coyotes that are using them as sex objects. You know, just the most horrendous existence you can even imagine. And you know, there a few years ago, it was that tractor trailer in San Antonio. The trailer was filled with 53 or 57 dead immigrants who had just baked in the sun. They got abandoned. They were locked up in this trailer, and God knows how long they were there, and they all died. And in you know, incredible Texas heat. It's just they don't think of these people as human, and when they are confronted with these stories of inhumanity, they deflect, or they blame it on Republicans, or they say that, well, what you guys are doing is much worse. Yeah, give me an example of that.
Yeah, I mean, really. I mean, the amazing thing is that they don't even notice it. That's what bothers me the most about it, is that they don't even think about it when they say stuff like that.
The media never actually says anything about it either, so it's not like they even know.
No, of course not. No, they don't even know about it. They're all focused on the tiny minority of illegal immigrants that have been here for 20 years and have jobs and stuff. Like, right. I would love to actually know what the statistic on that is of illegal immigrants that have been here, that are here illegally, that have normal jobs and don't live in some sort of criminal type situation. I bet you that percentage is less than 5% of all the illegal immigrants that are here. I bet you it's significantly less.
Even those people have no excuse for, as you point out, not having gotten their documentation in 20 years. Come on,
right? But my point is, just those people, how many of them are there of the illegal immigrant population in the United States? My guess is it's almost none. Almost none of those people.
We've been touting this figure of 20 million illegals living in the United States for at least 2 decades that I can think of. It's got to be way more than that. It's got to be.
So, Jeff, I actually have a whole article on this. I don't know if I've ever sent it to you, about the 50 million illegals that live in the United States, and that I actually have the numbers on that. So in 2003, my dad was running immigration. So we built all of the immigration filing centers in the United States. My father's company did. And in 2003, roughly sometime around that era, they were pushing something, you might remember this, from the Bush administration. They were pushing a new type of secure visa. It was going to be a secure work visa. Yeah. So that while they were pushing that, they needed to determine how many illegals were in the United States. So in 2003, between all of the top immigration officials at the time, they tried to determine that the number was roughly 23 to 28 million. Now, that's 2003. So, you take that, and then 1 million per year added on top of that, is because that's what they assumed it was every year, by the way. 1 million people came into the United States illegally. They said it was a 1-to-1 parity with what they were giving out in green cards, which was about 1 million. So in 1-to-1 parity, and then you go all the way out and get to the Biden years, and then add 10 million that they got during the Biden years, and then suddenly you're at 50 million. Now,
that's a conservative estimate too. That's just you're hoping it's only that many.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, but that's at the lowest numbers. I mean, the funny thing is that according to the government, every administration up until recently, they said that, the number was 11. Oh, there's only 11 million illegals here. But the great part about that is you can go back and find them saying that in the early 90s. Like it's documented. It's always been 11 million. The number never changes. Doesn't go up. Doesn't go down. No,
and they're relying on the short attention span of the American public, and the fact that they never ever hear about this in the media. So only once in a while does it ever come up, and it's always the same number.
Yeah. Well, I post the article that I have on this I'll send it to you. I post it once every couple months. So this is your reminder that there's 50 million illegals here and that they've lied to you for, they've lied to you about the number here for, your entire life. That's what,
and they lied to you about the resources that they're using up that should be going to American citizens, people actually born here. And they're lying to you about how many resources they're using up in the schools and the hospitals and welfare, the whole thing.
That's not important, Jeff. We don't be mean. You can't take that from them. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean, Jeff? You're just trying to take from poor, oppressed people that need your money.
It's the black and brown people that I want to oppress the most.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it's we've talked about this many times now that Stephen Miller has said that if we eliminated fraud from the federal budget, we could balance the federal budget. If we eliminated fraud and illegal immigration, or even cut illegal immigration in half, the number of illegals living in America long term using up our resources, imagine how much more money we would have, because then we're not paying interest on the debt, which is the single largest budget item we have that's contributing to that $40 trillion that we just crossed. So there are all kinds of ways that we could actually be fiscally healthy if we actually took all this seriously.
Yeah, that's right. If we could figure out a way to take this stuff seriously, a lot of things would change. Would change. And hopefully, it seems to me that we've got an idea of how to do that. But the question is, are we going to be able to get Congress in line and be able to get everything moved forward? Because the Democrats, if they get back in power, they're going to take it all back and they're going to immediately do exactly what they've been doing for the past 30 years because they don't care. They don't care. I love Abigail Spanberger is the perfect example of this. Running on affordability, she has done everything that the left has told her to do. And Virginia is going to become a much significantly less business-friendly state. The energy is going to skyrocket there. There's not going to be anything they can do about that. It's going to be significantly more
turn into New York City.
Yeah, it'll be the same thing. It's going to be East California. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it's Eastern California. That's what I was calling it before. That's what I was calling, but before Youngkin came back in and managed to fix things for a little while. But that's just the reality of it. But all right, Jeff, we are out of time. Guys, thank you for listening to the show. I appreciate everyone who listens to the show. The Fraud Watchers podcast and the Fraud Watchers website are about to get a huge update here in the next week or so. I'm hoping that this coming week we will actually be able to discuss the beginnings of the website because that's where we're headed next. And the show itself will get an even bigger revamp once we've had the website up and running for a while. But everybody who's listened to the show for the past few weeks that we've been doing this, I guess it's now episode 12. So we've been doing this for a few months now. Thank you for listening, guys, and we will see you guys next time, Thursday, 1 p.m. for more of Fraud Watchers. Thanks, guys.